So out of the 16, 5 of these deals were no contingency deals, no inspection contingency, no financing contingency. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another quick solo episode here on the Multifamily Wealth Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be chatting about the last 16 deals we've done, which is the amount of deals that we've done over the last 12 months. And I'm going to be providing a little bit of insight into where we found those deals, where they came from, and some of the strategies that we're using to find deals today. So this is just a review that we were doing internally as a business, and we were providing this to some investors and some potential capital partners. And I thought it would be helpful to discuss it on the podcast as well, in terms of sharing a little bit more about where our deals come from and literally what we're doing to find deals. And I'm literally going to be sharing the exact sources of the deals that we've done. And I'm going to be talking about the average size, talking about some other data points that I think you might find interesting as well as a multifamily investor, assuming that's what you are if you're listening to this podcast. So I'm going to be working off an Excel sheet here. First things first, again, we did 16 deals over the last 12 months. This is from July 15th to July 15th of 2024. So July 15th, 23 to July 15th, 24. That's when I'm recording this. This is probably going to go up in a couple of weeks, but again, that's not going to change the content of what I'm discussing here. In 2023, we bought more than what I'm talking about. This is just, again, trailing 12. In 2023, we did about 150 or so units because we closed on 68 units between late June and early July, a couple of larger deals. So this is just last 12 months. 16 deals, total of 85 units. A lot of these were smaller buildings. And then what I'm going to talk about here is where they came from. So it's literally broken down here, and I'm going to share exactly where those 16 came from. 3 deals were sourced via cold calls. 6 of these deals were sourced via direct mail. 3 of these deals were brokered. They had a broker involved in the deal, but they were actually expired listings. So we reached out to a broker for an expired listing and asked if the seller would still be interested. So not really on market. They were on market for a while, maybe mismarketed, priced too high. They became expired listings, and that's how we actually reached out and sourced those. Another 3 of these deals were, again, had a broker attached, but they were brokered by a residential broker who just brought it to us directly off market. So not listed, not gone through a full marketing process. These are almost like referral deals in a way. And then we had one more deal that there was a broker attached to, but it was literally just a referral from an out-of-state broker. So somebody who primarily does deals in Massachusetts, they knew a seller up in New Hampshire. I think it was somebody in their office, and they just brought it right to us, and they picked up a small kind of fee to just refer it over to us. So 9 of these were true textbook direct-to-seller deals. 7 of these had a broker, but they were a combination of expired listings, a residential broker bringing us a multifamily deal off market, and then really just a referral deal. So over 50% were direct-to-seller, really over 60% of these deals. And again, 3 were cold calls, 6 were direct mail. Now, I do think it's important to note that some of these direct mail deals, maybe we received a call initially from a direct mail piece, but this is a longer period of follow-up. We were making calls, we're sending text messages. So the origination of that deal was a mail piece. There are some deals in here as well. We were both calling, emailing, and sending direct mail to the sellers. So they called us off a direct mail piece, but there may have been some other there may have been some other motivational factors in terms of how we were contacting them, and they called us back, and we have a little bit of a hard time tracking that data, but we just assigned it as a direct mail deal because of the fact that they were calling us on a direct mail number. So we were contacting them in multiple different ways, but it may have come from a different source. Now, the average length from initial contact to close, which I think is an interesting data point here, and I'm going to actually go ahead and pull this really quick. Roughly just under 6 months. So there are a lot of these deals that were 3 months from first contact to close. Those are primarily anchored by the fact that those were the broker deals. In terms of that's basically just the closing timeline. Now, if we're looking at some of our direct-to-seller deals here, we have one at 6 months. We have one at 8 months. We have one at literally 6 years. There's one deal that was 6 years beginning to close. And I'm actually leaving that out of this average because of the fact that that's a real outlier. We have another one that was 12 months from first contact to close, another one that was 5 months. So very few of these direct to seller deals were a short period of time in terms of initial contact to close. And then the ones that are 3 months here in my list are mainly these broker deals where it was just they brought it to us, put it under contract, then we close, right? That's the closing period. So again, I think that's important to highlight because of the fact that many of these deals, especially the direct to seller deals, just have a longer sales process. And again, as I mentioned, we have 8, we have 6 years, we have 7 months, we have 12 months, we have 4 months, we have 8 months, 3 months, and then 2 months. And that was a faster deal in terms of there was more motivation there from a seller standpoint. So that really illustrates again the fact that you're not really going to get these deals done on your first contact. It's going to take multiple contacts. When I look at the terms in terms of how these deals were structured, so out of the 16, 5 of these deals were no contingency deals, no inspection contingency, no financing contingency. These were deals that had the opportunity to walk before we went under contract. Felt very comfortable with the condition. We received some leases and some information beforehand, and comfortable with no contingency because the price was just an absolute no-brainer. 10 of these deals, I call them our standard terms, which for us is a due diligence period. Usually for us, it's a 14-day DD period. And then we have no financing contingency, 60 days to close with an extension option. We're very competitive nowadays as a buyer because we just don't include financing contingencies. We're very comfortable with our ability to get deals financed. And if we can secure a better purchase price because we're competing with other buyers who are including a financing contingency and the seller's worried about that, we're going to take that risk all day long. And then one of these deals was a seller finance deal. It was a small deal, 3 units. Seller held a note back. So, that was a little bit outside of our norm. I also did this analysis because I thought this would be interesting. If it was easy to look up the age of the seller, I actually looked it up and listed it here. Obviously, you can't get that data for everyone. So I ballparked it, which is a pretty rudimentary way to actually do this analysis, but threw down either the exact or an approximate age of the seller here. I just kind of rounded down because I thought it'd be interesting to just look at what is the average age of the seller for the properties that we bought. So again, 16 deals, average age of the seller, 59.25. So let's just call it 60 years old. And I think that this is an interesting data point because it very much verifies who our seller is. Like we implicitly understand that we buy a lot of property from individuals that are looking to get out of the real estate business. They're looking to retire. They're looking to start, tapering down in terms of the size of their portfolio, what they're buying. And this data point is just a hard piece of data that actually verifies that. This is something that maybe we'll incorporate in our marketing. It's very hard to filter a list based on owner age. I know there's a lot of people that do this in the single family world where the owners are they have personal names as the actual ownership on the deed. But in multifamily, we're marketing to a lot of properties that are owned by trusts, that are owned by LLCs. If we have the owner's name, again, I just don't necessarily trust the veracity of that data on a large list. But for those of you out there that may be able to filter a list based on this, if you're in the small multifamily world and you're filtering purely based, you're excluding all properties that are owned by entities and you're purely focusing on properties that are owned by individuals with just their personal name. This might be something that you can do on like a list source or another data provider. But 16 deals over the course of 12 months is a pretty sizable sample size or pretty large sample size. And we did not have one. We had one seller out of the 16 that was below 50 years old. So basically, everybody being 50 to 70 with a couple of outliers, older gentlemen, younger gentlemen, 46. I'm obviously leaving names out of this, so it's not that big of a deal. But it just goes to show that that's typically who the seller is when you're buying a direct-to-seller deal or a deal from somebody that is a little bit more motivated to get a deal done and to take a discount. So to recap, 3 deals from cold calling, 6 from direct mail, 3 from expired listings, 3 that were brought by a residential agent but that were off market, 1 from just a broker referral, 85 units between all of those, average unit count being a little over 5. Again, this last 12 months, we haven't really bought any large properties. We've just bought a high volume of smaller buildings. that average unit count is going to be increased this year because we're doing more deals of size, stuff that's 10, 15, 20 plus units. A lot of these, again, standard terms, but 5 that were no contingencies. Average contact to close was just over 6 months, but for the direct to seller deals, this number would be 9 plus. Average age of seller being just about 60 years old. So this is just me freeballing some data to you. Maybe you're finding something in here helpful as it relates to what you're doing in your business. If you did take something away from this, if this has got you thinking in some way or another, please consider leaving the podcast a rating and a review. Helps the show get noticed by more folks as I kind of recap and mention every week. And if you think somebody in your network would find some value here, share the show, text it to somebody, email it to somebody in your network. Let's help grow this thing. But again, thank you all for listening, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.